lot of people out there that just want to learn more about virtual facilitation. So over the next 30 minutes, I'm really going to impart some of my skills and knowledge that I've picked up in my career over to you. And, you know, I've been through some formal training programs with Dale Carnegie on the art of online facilitation, but it is just an extra skill set. It's nothing to be scared of. It's just an extra skill set that you can transfer from face-to-face facilitation into the world of online facilitation. So how are we going to do this? Well, there's 5 key navigational features in Zoom that I'd like to share with you today that will enhance your learning and development. It'll make the delicate experience more enjoyable, okay? I'll get you to participate in a whiteboard activity, and we'll also discuss the benefits of using a breakout room. Okay, so the learning is more two-way in your learning environments, all right? But I'm sure, like me, some of you out there are still probably needed to be converted to the whole idea of engaging with online facilitation. I know I was. I cut my teeth in the classroom, doing face-to-face training, seeing the whites of their eyes. And, it took me a while to actually, convince myself that online facilitation is actually as effective as face-to-face facilitation in the most part. But let's look at some of this data, okay? So, and I find these figures very interesting. So in 2003, virtual facilitation as a percentage was just 2.92% of delivery. Now, if we look through to 2013, that has jumped up to 9.33%. Now, using the chat box, what do you think the percentage of virtual facilitation will be in 2021? Just, wild stab in the dark, give me a guess, any figure you like. Where do you think we're going to be? We're in uncharted waters here, unknown territory. I mean, we've got 25%, 70%, 50%. The numbers are just flying through the chat box. What I can tell you are the numbers are going up. So who knows in this current climate? What we do know is the numbers are going to go up, both self-paced and instructor-led virtual learning, and classroom delivery will probably decrease slightly, okay? The other, well, could be coaching, but whatever it is, virtual facilitation is here to stay. So that's why it needs to be engaging. And guys, you've probably been on sessions, okay, that have maybe been a bit dull, to say the least. Well, that's not going to happen on today's session, I promise you. We're going to make it fun and we're going to make it engaging, because the key here is that every 90 seconds, we need to keep your audience engaged. Now, I have kind of broken that rule a little bit because I've been talking in the introduction for more than 90 seconds, but I then got you to interact with the chat box. So I've kind of reset the timer a bit there. So I better crack on, because in the next 90 seconds, I need to get you doing something, all right? So how are we going to do this? Well, we've already started using the chat box. So again, using the chat box now, why is the chat box so valuable in terms of virtual facilitation? Why use the chat box? Just give me your thoughts and feelings, Why is it important to get your attendees engaging into the chat box? It can be a pretty lonely place out there as a facilitator if no one's using the chat box. It can be pretty boring as well for your delegates and your attendees if actually they're not engaging with you and sharing their ideas. I mean, we've got 46 people on the call now, and there's some fantastic experience in the room. I mean, look, we've got engagement coming up, creating learning. Yeah, I mean, they're coming so fast I can barely read it, but keeping more focus, listening more fun, absolutely. Keeping people involved. It's all about engagement, guys. So that's really why we want to try and use these techniques and build them into your online facilitation to get your audience involved in the content. Reactions and emojis are also a key tool, and in Zoom today we have some reactions. So go down to your control panel and click on the reaction button now, and go ahead and give me either the thumbs up or the clappy reactions there. So thanks very much, Sally. Nicola, yeah, great. Nicola's giving me a round of applause. Look at that. Can you see that? That's fantastic. And so you can suddenly see on everyone's video screens, I'm getting those little reactions there, and that's fantastic. So I just reset that 90-second clock, haven't I? That 90-second clock. We've also got some emojis. Okay, where will I find emojis? Well, go down to the participant panel, open that up, and you'll see some emojis there. So that's the participant panel. All right, and at the bottom, we've got some emojis, and give me the raised hand. So you can see now that all the list of attendees and everyone's raising their hand. Thanks, Adam. Okay. Chris, Scott, brilliant. You're all raising your hands. That's great. And you can see here there's some other emojis as well. Yes, no, go slower, go faster, and the coffee cup. Everyone put your coffee cup up. If you want to go off for a slip off for a quick break, I don't recommend going for a break at the moment. You're going to miss so much stuff. But if you are going off for a break, then put your coffee cup up. And as a facilitator and as the host, I can then just clear all those emojis when I need to reset. Okay. The mute etiquette. I mean, how many of you have been on sessions where you've got background noise coming in and you can barely hear the facilitator, and it's so distracting? You know, as an online facilitator, you are going to be a little bit more exposed. Okay, so noise and sound is really important. So during this session and also into bootcamp, I'm going to be giving you some valuable tips on muting your calls. You know, as a facilitator, you're in charge, you're in control. So do you want your delegates off mute or on mute? It really depends on the size of your session, okay? The same with video, okay? We're all on camera today, so give me a wave. Yeah, it's fantastic. I can see so many smiley faces now. That's brilliant. If you're not on camera, that's absolutely fine. But then it can be distracting, all right? So as a facilitator, I've got lots of people waving at me. And for the other learners, it could be a bit distracting as well. So I'm going to ask you all now to just turn off your camera, all right? Just quickly turn off your camera. Okay, so I can suddenly see now all those little faces have disappeared, and I'm going to then focus, get the learners to focus on what I'm talking about on my face or the screen, the content on the screen. You can go ahead now and turn your cameras back on. Great, right. So whiteboards. Well, who knows what a whiteboard is? So in the participants panel, give me a green tick if you know what a whiteboard is, or a red cross if you have absolutely no idea. I've got no idea what a whiteboard is all about when it comes to online facilitation. Okay, well, for those of you that given me a red cross, you're going to learn something new in literally a couple of minutes on what a whiteboard is all about. Okay, for those of you that have seen a whiteboard, great. And we'll be discussing in bootcamp, you know, how you can actually use a whiteboard to really make learning impactful. And it is really, as you would find in a classroom, it is a whiteboard where you can write on and engage with your audience. So we're coming back to whiteboards, and then finally polls and breakout rooms. So polls are a great way to test knowledge and opinions as you move through a session. And then breakout rooms obviously are a great way to divide your group up into smaller groups so you can really focus them on individual activities and learning points. Well, let's move on now to whiteboard activity. And to do this, before we begin, I'd like you to select your annotation. Okay, select your annotation button and select the text box, which you'll see towards the left of the annotation panel. Okay. And what you'll need to do is, once you've selected that text box, you can then begin typing on the screen. And then you'll need to move away, click out of the text box once you have finished typing and you want everyone else to see what you're typing. Okay, so I'm going to show you, give you an example of a whiteboard exercise here. And we've got hello, happy Friday, great, fantastic. So what I'm going to do is just clear all of those for now, because what I'd like you to do is on a scale of 1 to 10, select some white space and just type your name and then a number between 1 and 10 as to where you are in terms of online facilitation. All right, so 1 being, oh my God, I've never done any online facilitation, and 10, I've done loads of it, yeah, really comfortable. So Karen's at a 6. Okay, so you'll definitely pick up some skills here, Karen. Rachel, 1. Rachel, there's loads of tips I've got for you. Steph, you are using, Steph's actually using the drawing function, and that's absolutely fine. Do you know what? Go wild. This is just a test run, guys. There's no mistakes here. This is just for you guys to play around and test the functionality. But as a facilitator, it's really important that you are clear with your learners as to what you want them to do. So as you can see here already, some of the challenges are that your learners will start to put love hearts and scribbles over your whiteboard. Now for today, that's absolutely fine, but when you're facilitating a live session, you may want to be really clear and practice first of all with your audience as to how they can actually engage with a whiteboard. Before you then get them to type up their answers. And you can see here that some people are typing over one another. So there's lots of things that you need to consider. And I'll be taking you through that step by step to really help you understand. You can practice and nurture your skill set around how to use whiteboards so you can get the best out of your online training sessions. Good. So what have we got here? Chris is 7 to 8. Sheila's 1. I mean, we've got loads of different answers, but what I am going to do now is I'm going to clear all of those. So you can now stop adding to the whiteboard. Thank you very much. Okay. And we're going to move on and talk about breakout rooms. So breakout rooms are a great way of engaging your learners during a session. And while I'm talking through breakout rooms, why don't you just enter into the chat box? Why are breakout rooms valuable when it comes to virtual facilitation? Okay, maybe some of you have been on sessions where you've actually had the opportunity to go into a breakout room. Maybe some of you haven't, but why are they valuable? Okay, and I can see you're still adding squirrely lines, so I'm just going to clear those. So some tips from me is that as a host, when you're setting up a virtual learning event, you have 2 options. You can either set up your breakout rooms in advance, or you can do it on the day. Now, if you're going to do it on the day, I would highly recommend that you use your producer. Hayden's my producer today. And if you don't know what a producer does, well, join us on Bootcamp. We'll be sharing what a producer does and what they can do in the background to support you setting up for a breakout room. You can either, as I say, pre-assign people into those breakout rooms. And another tip I would like to share with you today is enable the waiting room before your session starts. This means that your attendees will join when you're ready. So when you and your producer are ready, you can then let your attendees join, and there's a nice, orderly welcome and start to the beginning of your session. So here is a screenshot, an example of some of the functionality around breakout rooms. And you can, say, you can allocate your learners into automatic breakout rooms. So at random, they'll just be placed into different rooms. Or you can actually pre-allocate, or you can manually move learners into different rooms. Now, doing it manually will take some time. So you will want a producer in the background to do that. And you can do that by allowing your producer, you can give them co-host rights in Zoom. Okay. So let's have a quick look at what's going on in the chat box. Loads of stuff. Okay. Yes, we will be sending out a recording afterwards. But yeah, it keeps people alert, focus on the learning and more fun, definitely. And breakout rooms are brilliant. As I say, we won't be doing a breakout room today, but in boot camp we will be having a go at using a breakout room. So I've got a poll question for you. So you've seen some tips that I've shared with you today. And a poll is a great way of interacting with your learners. You will need a paid Zoom account actually to launch a poll. What I'm going to do is launch a very quick poll for you now on how useful these tips have been so far. So Hayden, as my producer, is going to launch the poll for you. Okay. And you've got four options to pick from in the poll. And you can test learning. You can check in with your delegates as you go through. A tip would be to actually set up the poll before you actually start your learning event, and you can do that in Zoom through the admin center. And another 5 seconds before we close the poll. So 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you, Hayden. If you'd like to close that poll and share the results. Great. So already 63% saying so some of these tips just in 30 minutes have been really, really useful. So that's great to hear. Well, if you if you want to learn more about how to actually build and engage online learning, then I have created a 3-part learning journey for you to master the art of virtual facilitation. So there's 3 different boot camps which I'd like to share with you now. And boot camp 1 is on Thursday the 25th of June at 12 o'clock. So what are we going to be doing on boot camp 1? Well, I've shared lots of tools with you today, and just in 30 minutes it's gone like in a flash, isn't it, pretty much? So boot camp 1 is all around how I can support you with some of the functionality in Zoom to make your learning more engaging. We'll also be talking about getting into the right mindset. So as a facilitator, how are you going to be really prepared to get into that right mindset on the day? Who's going to support you as well? And also some detailed knowledge around using the mic and camera. Now you can see today that I've got a headset on, and I thoroughly recommend as a facilitator using a headset. You can hear me clearly, I hope. But when you're not using a headset, you do come across a little bit speakerphony and tinny. So when you are facilitating online, you really want to, come across as clear as possible, because you are exposed more than you are in face-to-face facilitation. I'll share some tips around using the chat function, okay, and honing questioning style as well. When you are using the chat function, sometimes it can get really, really busy. So as a facilitator, I just give you a quick tip now to close out one subject matter and move on to the next. You can see there I've just put some dotted lines across my chat. So that means that I've now broken up what I'm talking about, and we're going to move on to the next subject matter. Okay. We also have some fun activities around whiteboards. And for those of you that know what swim lanes are, then give me a green tick. If you've never heard of swim lanes, give me a red cross. But in whiteboards, there's so many different ways you can actually make whiteboards different and engaging. In Zoom, there's a built-in whiteboard facility. But actually, as you saw in my presentation, I embedded my own whiteboard into my presentation deck. So Chris, Claire, David, you don't know what swim lanes are, so I will share with you what swim lanes are in terms of a whiteboard, and we'll have a fun activity around that in boot camp for you. Great. Okay, just clear those drawings. Someone's very active with their drawings today. We'll also talk about setting up breakout rooms, but Bootcamp 2 is all about going into breakout rooms into great detail. So on Thursday, the 2nd of July, we'll be talking about when and why we use breakout rooms. And I've got some fun activities to share with you that you can use in breakout rooms to have facilitated discussions with your attendees. We'll talk about some of the back office setup of breakout rooms and how producers can set up automatic and manual groups, and what your role is in an actual facilitated session when you've got breakout rooms going on. You can actually, as a host and co-host, jump between different breakout rooms and say hi to your delegates as if you were in a face-to-face event and you had different syndicate rooms. So that's in boot camp 2. Now you'll see that boot camp 1 and 2 are 60 minutes. Boot camp 3 is 2 hours. And I'll explain why in a moment. But boot camp 3 is on Thursday, the 9th of July. And I'm going to be sharing with you some fantastic icebreaker examples that you can use in the virtual world and a variety of engaging activities. We'll also look at designing your event. So maybe some of you have got some great learning content, but actually you're struggling as how you can actually convert that into the online world. So we'll give you a few tips around that. And then you'll have your own 5-minute learning challenge. So this is where you will go away and design a 5-minute engaging virtual event, and then you'll deliver that back and receive some peer-to-peer feedback. And that's why the session is 2 hours. It'll be 45 minutes of us sharing some further tips with you. 30 minutes where you'll go away and prepare your 5-minute session. And then you'll have 45 minutes where you'll come back, teach back to the other participants on the session and receive peer-to-peer feedback. Well, I hope that sounds good. Give me a thumbs up if that sounds good using your reactions button. Remember, there's a difference between reactions and emojis, okay? Reactions, that's it, great, Nicola, you've got it. Reactions are on your individual video screen, and the emojis are in the participants panel. Okay, so it's really clear as an online, you need to be really clear as an online facilitator what you want your delegates to do. So if you want to learn more, then this is definitely for you. So for a small investment in your time, I think will really give you a big impact with your business, your consultancy, and your learners. And it will help you to deliver value for money for your learners as well as you move into the new world of online facilitation. Now, there are lots of other training providers out there that deliver similar sort of bootcamp style learning events. But, I would say that this is a small investment and great value for money, as each bootcamp is £49. Bootcamp 3 being slightly longer is £79. And if you were to purchase the entire package, then that would be £149, which gives you a saving of £28. So I'm sure you will agree, like an iPhone update, this is an important update for your skill set as we're ready and embrace, the new world of virtual facilitation. So I hope you found that of interest. And what I'd like to do now is just hand over to Hayden, who's going to explain a little bit more around, how you sign up for these bootcamp modules. And we'll also have an opportunity to take some of your questions via the chat box. So I'll hand over to Hayden now, and I'll be back to say goodbye in a little bit. So Hayden, over to you.
Thank you, Richard. That was an amazing session. Lots of really brilliant tips that you shared with us there and gave us a real good insight into some new ways and different ways or enhanced ways of using this tool. So hopefully everybody's really enjoyed the session and got some real value from it. So the boot camps, as Richard said, they're going to be brilliant. They are amazing value. We've really kind of looked at the way we've structured these sessions to give you some really enhanced. And I love the analogy of kind of the iPhone update. It really is a time for us to update our skills and our thinking in this area. So in terms of how do you sign up for this program, you will be receiving an email. You may have already got it in your inbox, which has come from the team here at BrainFood. There's a link there. So if you want to go through the full package, then you just go straight through and follow that link and you can sign up immediately. And if you want to sign up for each individual element, and you can pick to do one, two, or all three, of course, then you can click on each of the individual links that will be in the email, and that will take you through to the payment page where you can sort out the payment and, of course, then join. I've just seen a note, there will be recordings of all of the boot camps. So if you purchase them, then yes, you'll have them to keep forever. So they will be your recordings that you'll be able to refer to time and time again as you go through. So you'll have a recording. If you're not able to make the specific dates, then absolutely you'll get the recording as well if you sign up. And what we are also planning is to do more of these boot camp sessions later in the year. And therefore, if you purchase the one but you can't make the first live running, we will invite you onto a later session so you do get that experience of having it live if you choose to. So the link will be coming out. Nicola has sent that out today to everybody who's registered for today's session, so you will have received that. We'd love you to sign up and come and join us, and we can guarantee that you'll get lots of value from it. And yes, there will be the opportunity to chat to us and have a more personal relationship with myself or Richard on how to utilize the skills and better take your online facilitation to the next level. So we thoroughly encourage you to take advantage of it. So I guess what we'd like to do now is we've got some time left. Richard has been great and kept to his timings, which is also one of the top tips for online facilitation.
Definitely.
So that's give us plenty of time for any questions. So if you want to use the chat function, you can drop us any questions that you'd like to speak into, and we'll do our best in the next 10-15 minutes to answer any of those questions. If you don't have questions and you want to and you've got what you need from the session, then thank you all for joining, and we'll look forward to seeing you again on our next BrainFood event. But we'll stay online for any questions that anybody's got. So use the chat function and drop us over those questions.
Great, thank you, Hayden. Yeah, so feel free to shoot some questions over. More than happy to answer those. Hayden, I think we've got some questions coming in already, haven't we?
We have. So we've got a question around the boot camp. Sounds great. Lovely for that. Thank you. Is there a function to save the whiteboard images? So can we save those whiteboard images when they happen?
There absolutely is. Yeah. So as a host or co-host, you will have the opportunity to save a screenshot of that whiteboard, and that will be saved to your desktop, usually to a file on your computer that you're using. And then the beauty is you can email that out to your delegates afterwards.
And we've got another question on whiteboards, which is from Alexandra. Do mouse pens work with them, and is it worth it? I often draw on a physical whiteboard when I'm teaching. So can you use the same functionality with a pen, a mouse pen?
I'm sure it would. So I've never actually tried that, to be honest with you. But whatever device you're using, whatever you're doing, whatever interaction you're doing on the screen, if it works on your own device, it will then be broadcast to your audience. So if you've got successes with those different devices at home, and technology that you're using at home, then I would say that's perfectly usable, in an online training environment.
And Claire's just confirmed that. So she says her boss has one and uses that. So thank you, Claire, for that clarification from your experiences. Susan's saying lost the bottom toolbar, already had the chat open, otherwise it would have disappeared too. So you can certainly on the Mac, if I've got the chat open, I can just hover over the toolbar at the bottom and it does come back up. Depending on your laptop, it may be that yours works in a slightly different way, but you can always minimize the chat, go to your toolbar and then reopen the chat again afterwards. Could that work? Hover over works on Windows 2. Thanks, Alexandra. So that great questions. David's saying, do you always recommend having a producer?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, it depends on the numbers and what you're doing, David. If you're doing just a small coaching session or just a facilitated chat with very little, use of functionality, then you might not need one. But if you're doing a structured learning event, like I have been today, that has graphics, slides, you may have some video content, you may have breakout rooms and polls, then it's a lot to try and focus on as a facilitator whilst you're trying to hold your audience's attention. So that's why I would recommend a facilitator if you are doing a lot of that engagement stuff, because remember, we want to keep your audience engaged every 90 seconds. So there's a lot of stuff for you to be trying to do in the background as well.
Adam's saying, thanks, Richard. Adam's saying, great demonstration of how an online session should be delivered. So thank you for that, Adam. I agree. Richard did a great job. So how much time do you allocate per session to app familiarization, so getting used to the actual tool itself, or would you try and cover this in pre-course communications?
Well, so when Zoom came along, and I'll be honest with you, 2 years ago I'd never really heard of Zoom. I had to spend quite a bit of time just familiarizing myself with all the functionality on Zoom. But to be honest with you, it didn't take that long, and I ran a few practice sessions. But the more you do it, the more you become familiar with it. So I would say that yes, practice in your own time is absolutely critical, but we will take you through what you need to know and handhold you through that process, and then you can go away and run some fun training sessions for your friends and your colleagues and get used to actually running it as a facilitator or even behind the scenes as a producer.
Absolutely, great stuff. So Jessica's got a question here, which is, if we're following a link without registering to Zoom, so not having their own account, does it limit the features that you can access? Because she couldn't access the whiteboard. And she's also asked, what's the maximum of participants that you think should attend learning sessions?
Well, that's the golden question, isn't it? I mean, look, the more I'll be honest with you, the more attendees you have, the harder it is to actually, engage with them, one-on-one or in small groups. It's not impossible, but you'll just need to think very, very carefully, if you've got large numbers, how you're actually going to design your learning event so that your learners are going to be in tune with what you're doing rather than switching off and doing emails. We've all been on webinars where it's one way, where the presenter is talking to the audience and there's very little interaction. But a virtual hosted learning event should really be two-way, and every 90 seconds something should be going on where you're interacting with your audience. So less is more, but if you do have a lot more people, then think about how you can actually really involve them and engage them throughout that session.
A good example of that is we had 49 people on this webinar at the peak of it. So, and I think Richard kept everybody pretty well engaged throughout. So it can be done, I guess. Adam's asking the question: virtual backgrounds for the facilitator, do or don't? If not, what background setting would you recommend to engage with the attendees?
So that is, are you talking about the virtual backgrounds in Zoom?
Or is it do you use the virtual backgrounds, or if you don't, what would you recommend instead as a background?
Yeah, I mean, we'll spend a lot of time on bootcamp talking about your positioning and where you are at the moment, the lighting. But if the virtual background works for you, then go for it. Unfortunately, my virtual background on Zoom doesn't work very well, so that's why I've chosen not to turn it on. But Hayden's got some banners in his background, but anything that minimizes the distraction for your learners is best, I would say.
Loving Claire's comment, International Superman Day today. I didn't know that, so that's wonderful. Hence your background. So love that, Claire. Using a background that ties into something significant is a great idea. So that's another lovely tip from Claire there. And I think that is it for all the questions. So yeah, just comments. We will be sending the recording out to everybody of this session. So we're still recording all of the questions as well. This will be coming out later on this afternoon. You'll get the links to the bootcamp first of all, and then we'll send a second email out this afternoon, which will be a link to this recording. So you can rerun it, go back through all of the tips that Richard shared. Some of you weren't able to join until later because I'm not getting the link in time. You'll have access to everything that we've covered. So hopefully that will be great for you, and you'll enjoy listening to the recording.
Great. Well, thanks very much for all of your questions. And it sounds like most of you have got a great deal from this little taster. So whatever you're doing in the world of, online learning, just be brave and remember it is a different skill set, but it's something that will, once you're practicing it, it actually will bring you a lot of satisfaction. I know it has for me. When I've picked up these skills and practiced them, I've really, seeing the feedback from my attendees, that on how engaging these sessions can be has, really been so motivating for me, and I want to share that with you. So I'd love to see you on boot camp, and thanks again for joining us today. Feel free to follow us on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Thank you, Richard. That's been absolutely wonderful. Some great engagement on the chat there. Some really, really great questions. So it's obviously hit home with many, many people. We're getting lots of lovely comments about how informative it's been and how useful it's been. So I think, in what's a little over 40 minutes, you've really filled everybody's cup with lots of great advice and tips and simple things that everybody can go away and start using straight away. So, and there's loads more to come on bootcamp. So I see a couple of people are saying that you think about bootcamp. I would really, really encourage you to sign up. I can guarantee you won't be disappointed. It will be a fantastic opportunity to get deeper into many of the subjects that we touched on today, to give you a lot more insight and really take your online facilitation to that next level. So we look forward to seeing you all on bootcamp.
Great, can't wait. Well, thanks very much, everybody, and have a lovely weekend as well.